Hey there, I'm Julie Stokes with Ellevate, Louisiana. In today's Engage Quick Take, I'm visiting with a former guest of the show, Veneeth Iyengar, who's the Executive Director of Broadband Development and Connectivity for the State of Louisiana, to check up on how the state is doing in its quest to provide statewide broadband. You can check out our previous episode with Veneeth at www.ellevatela.org. That's Ellevate with 2 L's. So Veneeth, it's good to have you here again.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, it looks like there was a bill, HB 648, that passed the legislative session that will have a distinct impact on our broadband plans. What does that bill do?
Yeah, so HB 648 is effectively the creation of our state broadband grant program, a first-time program that's ever been created in the history of Louisiana, focused on addressing this unserved population when it comes to lack of broadband. Governor Edwards signed it on June 29th. It's now Act 477, so it's now into law. And we're now blowing and going, drafting rules and coming up with the scoring criteria to get folks ready very shortly on the mechanics of the program.
It's pretty exciting. I'm sure it's a busy time for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so what does that program dictate how the dollars are deployed, or?
Yeah, so the money is really geared towards solving this access issue that exists in Louisiana. And just to recap the folks that listened earlier, when we look at broadband in the state of Louisiana, it isn't just who doesn't have it, but who also can't afford it. And then also, even if it's accessible and affordable, digital literacy then becomes a challenge. And so in certain parts of the state, the challenges are evident from an access, affordability, and literacy perspective. In certain parts of the state, it may not be an access issue, it may be an affordability issue. And in certain parts of the state, it may not be access nor an affordability issue, it may be a literacy issue. And so the Gumbo program that we're focusing on is really to address singularly first the access issue, because that's the greatest need. And then very quickly and at the same time, we need to start addressing and developing public-private partnerships to address affordability, but also to address literacy.
All right, so who administers the program? Is that you?
Yeah, so our Office of Broadband and Connectivity will administer the Gumbo program. It's 180 million, but it's 90 million that's been appropriated by the legislature, and then it's 90 million for next year. And so our office would be administering that program, and then we'll have a third-party group that's going to evaluate these grant programs based off, as I mentioned, a scoring criteria that takes into account a multitude of factors.
All right, so I like it. It's catchy, Gumbo, the Gumbo plan. So Who qualifies for Gumbo dollars?
Yeah, so the eligible applicants are co-ops. So co-ops, especially let's say in Northeast Louisiana, can play an exceedingly important role, just given the natural infrastructure that they have and the fact that they're providing billing in very rural areas, and electricity and then billing mechanisms in rural areas. But co-ops are an eligible applicant, municipalities, the private sector, and school boards. So what we wanted to do was make it as broad as possible in terms of eligible applicants. And so a really good partnership would involve a school board, let's say, partnering with the municipality or parish, then partnering with a private sector company to addressing a problem.
So is it a matching sort of fund, or is that how it works?
Yeah, so in the act, the private sector company has to commit a minimum of 20% as a local match towards a project. The municipality has an option to use some of their federal funding or any type of funding to serve as a local match. What we didn't want to do, Julie, is to be too prescriptive in terms of what the minimum match was with respect to money coming from the municipality, because we understand 20% in East Carroll Parish is going to be quite different than 20% in Tangipahoa or St. Tammany. And so what we wanted to make sure we do was give the options and give the option to the municipality to say, if you want to put in a certain amount of money, you can. It's not required. And if so, you'll get some extra points for your project.
So it sounds like the local governments, in conjunction with private businesses and all the different parts of that local government, all kind of have the ability to come up with a way to put
Yeah.
together a program. That's
So, what's really interesting, and this is why it's a beautiful effort, because, I was in St. Francisville earlier in West Feliciana, addressing a group talking about broadband. And in that meeting, you had the following people. You had the CEO of the large hospital. You had people from the school board, both IT and administrators. You had DEMCO, which is the electricity provider largely in that area. You had the parish president there. And you had the business community. So you had different groups all coming together, and the sheriff was there, each having a specific role that they can play to affect change when it comes to broadband needs for their community. And that's what we want to see in any type of area, wherever we go in terms of partnerships.
That's perfect. So at the local level, they know what they need, and they can work together to come up with the coalition to drive it. That's
Correct.
perfect.
Yeah.
So one of the big questions is, how do we know that what we do invest is going to get invested in really quality broadband? Because we don't want to outfit everybody with yesterday's broadband,
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's really a twofold question. The first is, how do we ensure that the money that's going to be invested in projects, that those people, those grant recipients actually say that they're going to do what they're going to do in a timely fashion? And so the first thing that we did, and what we've done, and has been very considerate, and we've been very considerate in the act, is to ensure that no tax dollars are arbitrarily wasted on projects that may go bust. If we feel that progress is not being made, then we have the right to potentially claw that project back to the state, and then we re-award that money to another provider to help fill in the gaps. So it's not money that we're giving to a company all at once. They have to fulfill certain obligations based on the number of households that they are going to provide access to. So 10% of the projects completed, you get 10% of the money. 35% of the project completed, you get 35% of the money, and so on and so forth, up to 100%. So that's one thing. The second is, I think it's universal, Julie, that fiber to the home is the ultimate solution. It's like concrete, it's robust, it's durable. The feds have given fiber a 25 to 30 year shelf life. There is still fiber in the ground in Louisiana that's been in the ground for about 40 years that still has capacity that we haven't leveraged. So that's an opportunity for us to get involved in lighting up that fiber. The challenges with satellite is more of a physics problem, but everyone talks about Starlink and SpaceX and the things that they can solve. If you talk to, if you read and listen to what Elon Musk is saying when it comes to SpaceX and Starlink, he feels that the best use of their satellite technology is in very remote parts of the state that fiber may not necessarily go to. So we're talking about Grand Isle, hyper remote areas that may be difficult to actually bury fiber or bury conduit. So we're talking about, areas that have populations of maybe 200 people, 150, 300 people that are in very, very, very rural parts of the state.
Wow. Well, it doesn't sound like a small task, I'll tell you. I hope you have some help over there.
Yeah, so we did add a couple of employees or colleagues of mine, really sharp candidates, really good people. And so Thomas Tyler is my deputy director. Thomas Tyler Jr. is my deputy director, and he ran LED's digital media tax program under, I think, Stephen Moray. And so it's one of the more complex programs. So he'll be my number two. And then we were able to recruit the number one student from LSU's MPA program, who I've worked with in the past. He's got he's a sort of a data junkie, but he's going to serve as our senior policy analyst and has been really helpful. And both of them in their short time have done a great job in helping us understand the challenges, but also more importantly, addressing the opportunities.
Oh, very exciting. Well, Veneeth, we thank you for being here with us today on Ellevate's Quick Take. For those of you that are listening, if you're interested in joining Ellevate, seeing more of our videocast or podcast, or in attending our August 19th summit, visit our website at ellevatela.org. That's Ellevate with 2 L's. I'm your host, Julie Stokes, and we'll see you next time.